starting this one off differently than normal. Um, my last video went out on August 31st, and my mother passed away on September 3rd in the evening. It was just me and her, no one else around, and I was with her when she took her last breath. And I'm not going to lie, even though it's about a week and a half later, it still bothers me a lot. I tell everybody that I'm doing okay, but the truth of the matter is, I don't know that most of us would do okay with our parents passing away, or our siblings or children. I don't have any siblings. I don't have any children. All I have were my parents. And it's one of those kind of things where you try to weigh where you're good and where you're not. And as an individual, it's hard enough to deal with. And so I'm working on it. Now, if you're a leader who has to deal with one of your employees who goes through the same thing, it's probably also going to be hard, because most of us are geared towards saying to someone else, "Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm fine." And it's hard for you to contradict that. Almost nobody ever contradicts that unless they've been in that spot. I've used "I'm fine," "I'm doing well" every day since my mother passed, and only one person has basically come out and said, "I don't believe it," because she went through it a year and a half earlier when her mother passed. Although she has siblings, her father had passed about a year before her mother. Her mother had dementia just like my mother, but her mother was in a facility. My mother was at home. And unless you have a bit of empathy or a bit of, well, unless you've been through it, you really don't know. But you also can't overstep the bounds. It sounds harsh to say that it's always about the job when you're at work, but in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. You can still show compassion to your employees. At least I tried. I did try to show my compassion. I think I did well, but I also was worried. And we're all worried because when I had employees, I hadn't been through either of my parents passing away at that moment. And I wasn't really sure how you say anything. All I had was my fear of how I would handle it if either one of my parents passed away. And when my dad passed away, I wasn't an employee any longer. I was self-employed, and I hadn't been self-employed a full year when it happened to my dad, and I was basically incapacitated for 6 to 8 months. I just couldn't concentrate on anything. I would cry at a moment's notice. That has happened with me. At least it happened the first week. After that, I've gained a little bit more control. It doesn't mean I love my mother less. It's just that I've gotten older and learned how to handle certain things better. And this time around, I think I did better for my mother, because basically, in a weird way, I've kind of put my career on hold for about 5 years, taking care of my mother at home, whereas Dad, it kind of came fast. To me, it came fast because my parents kind of always withheld information until the last minute. And I never really got to help all that well with my dad's home care until he passed away. So in this regard, at least I know that I did everything I could for my mother. I knew she was never going to get better, and I stepped up to the challenge. But I now have to recreate my career, and it's just something that, as I've thought about it, I've thought about how do other people do it? People who might have kids. People who have spouses, people who have siblings. When a parent passes away, if they've had a good relationship, how do they pull themselves back together and actually get back to work, and get back to work soon and do the best they can? And I'm going to give just one tip, because that's all I got in me. I have one tip: how to deal with an employee who's had someone pass away in their family who they were close to. And that tip is to not overdo the emotional part. We all deal with it differently. And if you keep asking someone, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" eventually you may get the answer you really didn't want to hear, or you're not prepared to hear. So it's better if you say, if you have any problems, anytime you need more time off, whatever, come talk to me. That's the best way to go about it. And then you just go about the work. You don't treat someone totally different because they've had something like that happen in their family, unless you notice they're not handling things well. You're still going to probably have to deal with the occasional breakdown of emotion. That's fine. Breaking down of emotion is fine. You should kind of expect that kind of thing from some people. If they're not totally oriented to the job, you may see them kind of staring every once in a while. It's okay to walk up to them and say, are you having a problem with the work? Gear it towards the work. You know it probably isn't going to be the work, but gear it towards the work. And they'll probably snap out of it and say, no, I'm good, and go with it. It's a tough time for everybody involved. And compassion is the best way to go at it, but also keeping your eye on the job. Helping people to kind of, at least for these few moments, take their minds off of their problems. If they're able to come back to work, do whatever. However, I will also say this, if you don't think they're ready, then you need to tell them, I don't think you're ready to be here. And say it compassionately. That's what I have. That's it. I'm done. Leadership. And, I wish all of y'all the best with your families, and let's move forward. My name is Mitch Mitchell. You take care.